Good morning. My name is Reverend Dr. Sandra Fees. I use she, her pronouns. Our chalice reading this morning is adapted from Space for New Possibility by Reverend Gretchen Haley. And this is the time for you, if you have a chalice at home, to light yours while I light our chalice here in the sanctuary. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? For this hour, we gather to surrender to the mystery, to release ourselves from the needing to know, the yearning to have it all already figured out, and also the burden of believing we either have all the control or none. Here in our song and our silence, our stories and our sharing, we make space for a new breath a new healing, a new possibility to take root. That is courage forged in the fire of our coming together and felt in the spirit that comes alive in this act of faith. That we believe still a new world is possible, that we are creating it already, here and now. Let us worship together. Come, let us light the fire of our faith. And good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berks County. Wherever you are this morning, however you are joining, you are welcome here. We come to this time of worship to make meaning of our lives and to make meaning of the world around us, to connect to the source of life and to one another. We come to laugh, to cry, to be in awe, to gather the spirit in community. We come to bear witness to the marvelous and to the terrible, to our lives and to each other's lives. We begin our time of worship by honoring the Lenni Lenape people upon whose ancestral land the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berks County, where I am standing this morning, is located. As we are gathering, I want to extend a special welcome to anyone who's visiting with us this morning. And I invite everyone to take a moment to write your name in the chat box and to let us know where you're joining from this morning and on whose ancestral lands. In the chat box, you will find the church web address. And if you want to receive our weekly newsletter, which keeps you apprised of our activities and worship services, you can go to our webpage and you can sign up. You will also this morning find a link to the order of service for this morning. At the conclusion of our service, we will have coffee hour time, a virtual time to be together in smaller groups and to do a little bit of sharing with one another. For now, though, I would invite you, if you're able and willing, to unmute your video cameras if they're not unmuted and take a moment to give each other a welcome, a wave, a namaste, or a smile, maybe one of those reactions on Zoom. We very much hope to soon be welcoming back our worshiping community into our sanctuary. Meanwhile, members of our worship team will be leading worship from our beautiful sanctuary. Some will be on Zoom. Next week, we will be opening up some additional spaces for people to attend worship in person. And we will do that remaining in compliance with our current policies and guidance on how to gather. And you'll be receiving more information about that this week. I want to take a moment to express my gratitude for those who are leading worship this morning here in our sanctuary. This includes our musicians, Virginia Schultz-Johnson, Susan Pena, and Skip Miller. Also, Amber Brown will share a story and introduce our special collection. Carol Orts is going to share with us about UU Justice efforts in our state. And Jean Kakuza is our worship associate and will share a reflection. And on Tech Deck, we have Mike Mannix and Frank Wilder, with Nick Pomo hosting Zoom virtually. So a lot to look forward to this morning as we gather. Our service today is a time of reflection on how well we are doing at believing in possibility. How is your faith in possibility? Let us worship now together in song with Gather the Spirit.
Gather the Spirit's harvest, the power, our separate fires will kindle.
Good morning. I'm Carol Orts, and my pronouns are she and her. How good it feels to be speaking from this pulpit this morning, to be in this wonderful space. My wish is that all of us will be seated here together very soon. You might not realize it, but today is Social Justice PA Sunday. Congregations across the state are highlighting the work and existence of UU Justice PA. Were we all here in person, you would see a display of pamphlets on the table in the Gerber Room. I am wearing our yellow social justice shirt, which I hope you wear when you are doing our social justice work in public. UU Justice PA is an offshoot of UU Plan, a group to coordinate and advance the social justice work of the Unitarian Universalist congregations throughout Pennsylvania. The state mission is pursuing justice by voting, advocating, and making just public policy. Within our own congregation, we are involved heavily in anti-racism and immigration justice. But there are other issues too. Perhaps you have a passion to see more done in the area of climate change, with questions about what the state government is doing about it. Or perhaps you are passionate about economic justice. What is the state doing about the minimum wage and the inequality in incomes? Or maybe your current concern is redistricting and voting rights. We're sure worried about that. UU Justice PA is divided into subgroupings in 6 different areas. These groups have Zoom gatherings to share ideas, plan actions, and learn more. They meet every other month on Zoom. In between meetings, they keep interested members updated with email alerts and notices of public Zoom educational forums. I joined some of those Zooms. I learned many new things and was energized by the participants. The areas covered by these 6 groups you can see on the chart, I think, are gun violence prevention, very much in the news again with growth of gun ownership and more gun killings, gun parts that can be purchased without licensing. Environmental justice is working hard on climate issues of all types, which state laws can help, and also with the preservation of nature and our planet. Good government covers the areas of redistricting, voting rights, or lack thereof, corruption in government, criminal justice reform, working to make the enforcement of law more just, and the prison system more reforming than cruel. Reproductive justice, an area where we may have thought was working well toward justice until we see what has happened in Texas and other states as they try to undo Roe versus Wade. Economic justice, looking at rights of unions, the minimum wage, fair taxation, public education. If you have an interest to help work for change in one of these areas, or just to keep yourself up to date on what is happening in the state, please go to the website, uujusticepa.org. You will see upcoming activities and be able to contact the group of your choice. I, as the volunteer liaison to UU Justice PA, would also love to know of your interest, as it would be very productive if our congregation had 1 or 2 people connecting in each of those areas. Hope to see you at the justice table in the Gerber Room very soon. Thanks.
Good morning. I am Amber Brown. My pronouns are she, they, and we're going to read a story this morning called What We'll Build: Plans for Our Together Future. So I think we're going to take a look at the cover and the back cover of this book first. I love looking at the back of a book because it'll describe what the story is about. And the back cover of this book says, "What should we build, you and I? I'll build your future and you'll build mine. We'll build a watch to keep our time." What shall we build together, you and I? Let's gather all of our tools for a start. For putting together and taking apart, let's build a door where there was none. We'll build a house to be our home. I'll build your future and you'll build mine. We'll build a watch to keep our time. We'll build some love to set aside and build a hole where we can hide. A fortress to keep our enemies out and higher walls for when they shout. But you don't always lose and you don't always win. So we'll build a gate to let them in. We'll build a table to drink our tea and say, "I'm sorry." Me too. Me three. We'll build a tower to watch the sky for other worlds that pass us by. Let's build a tunnel to anywhere. Let's build a road up to the moon. Let's build a comfy place to rest, for we'll be tired soon. Let's build a boat that can't be broken, that will not sink or be cracked open. A place to stay when all is lost, to keep the things we love the most. We'll put these favorite things beside the earlier love that we set aside. I think that we may want them later, when times are hard and needs are greater. But first things first, let's build a fire. For we've planned a lot, and now we're tired. It'll keep us warm, like when we're born. And we'll say good night as all's all right. These are the things that we'll build, you and I.
We each need a place of comfort when we are tired, a place to stay when we are lost. We need a place for the things we love most. Here in community, we share those times when things are hard and when things are going well, when we need comfort, when we have joy. We share our joys and sorrows in this time, and you're invited to take a few minutes to reflect on the joys and the sorrows that you are carrying, and as you feel moved, to share them in the chat box or to hold them in silence. As you do so, I'll invite our worship team, if any of them would like to place a stone in our bowl this morning in silence, that they may also do that. I will place stones also in our common bowl to symbolize the stirrings of our hearts and minds and lives. And I'm going to begin with the first stone for a celebration. I know many of you know of this celebration, but maybe not all. And I know you'll rejoice with me this morning for E.B. Bromley, our Director of Religious Education and Director of Music, and Andrew Carpenter, who were married yesterday. Yay. So let us listen now to Spirit of Life as we share our joys and our sorrows. May the grief you witness, the compassion you bring, and the joy you notice open your heart to the unfolding of life. May you know that you are part of an interdependent web of life and love, that you are held in compassion and care. May it be so. Amen. Jean Kakuza is our worship associate, and she's going to share her reflection this morning on what gives her faith impossibility.
Good morning. My name is Jean Kakuza, and I use she and her pronouns. I want to thank our musicians for sharing their gifts today. It's wonderful to be here. I also want to thank all of you, the staff and all the volunteers who made it possible to be in this beautiful space. I feel embraced by the sanctuary, by the curving pews, the grand carving arches, the stained glass with the sun streaming through, and most of all, by the energy of the souls that are in this sanctuary today. Our sanctuary is like our chalice. It holds our light. It holds the light of the souls within its sacred walls. Like all of you, like all of us, I look forward to the day when we can all be here together to embrace each other physically. A good hug is always wonderful, emotionally and spiritually. To embrace means to trust, to love, to support, to be vulnerable. We certainly need these qualities to embrace the possibility of the beloved community. When this congregation adopted the eighth principle in May of 2020, we declared our commitment to the vision of the anti-racist, multicultural, beloved community. This commitment requires faith, strength, trust, hope, truth, vulnerability, patience, perseverance, courage, and humility. It's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask. How can we hold on to this vision? How do we overcome the plethora of dark forces that discourage us, that frustrate us, that thwart our progress toward justice? It's a difficult journey, no doubt, but it's possible when you have companions who are embracing you with their energy, their faith and commitment, with their passion for truth and justice. I first felt the strength of this commitment when I attended the Jubilee on a snowy weekend in 2015, right over in our Gerber room. Together, we learned difficult, uncomfortable truths about our nation. We realized how deeply white supremacy has shaped our country's narrative. We forged bonds with other seekers, bonds that strengthened as we continue the journey in the Beloved Conversations program. After a reunion of the Beloved Conversations participants, a few of us became RJET, Racial Justice Education Team. We showed documentaries in this sanctuary and wrote articles for the Inner Voice to enlighten our congregation and the local community on the profound impact of systemic racism. Then in the beginning of 2020, RJET morphed somehow into ADORE, a dialogue on race and ethnicity. The pandemic moved our Sunday listening cafes onto the virtual platform. We planned another Jubilee and learned that it too would be virtual. We shared our hearts and our minds with other seekers, many from other states. Throughout these years of serving on teams, I've developed warm relationships with a fluid group of hardworking activists. Their dedication, all of your dedication, inspires me. When I've been disappointed or discouraged by lower than hoped for numbers at our films, at our documentaries, at our listening cafes, at the Jubilee in the summer, my teammates would step up to do the work to continue our efforts, to feed our spirit and our motivation. Last month, Tanya Wanger spent 2 hours training me how to do a Zoom meeting. For the August Cafe, Adele Wallace prepared an excellent presentation on the truth about the controversy surrounding critical race theory. Pat Uribe-Lichty and Carla Mannix organized a group effort on systemic racism in education for the September and October listening cafes. Pat is also promoting participation in the October 16th ARC workshop, Dismantling Racism. These members, among many, many others, many of you out there, many of you who are right here in this space or are listening from your homes, many, many, many people generously share their resources and extensive knowledge of sociology and history. We cannot aspire to become the beloved community unless we embrace each other's efforts, share responsibilities, and accept that we will sometimes stumble and need someone to pick us up. Developing healthy relationships is not only central to the work of the Eighth Principle, but also one of the profound benefits of being on this journey to multiculturalism. We learn to trust each other and respect each other's talents and concerns. We become friends, close friends. These relationships can nourish us when we stumble over obstacles, when things get messy, as they will, when conflicts arise, when we feel sad and depressed by the weight of so much death and tragedy, so much pain and suffering, so much apathy, anger, and ignorance. We are human. We need other humans to make any real change. We need those connections. I hope to see all of you, to connect with all of you at our next Listening Cafe in October and the other events coming up. Thank you.
Hello again. I am here to talk about today's Share the Plate recipient, which happens to be Planned Parenthood Keystone. That's a company that is the local version of the national Planned Parenthood that I happen to have worked at since 2004. I oversee the education and training departments. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about our company so you know where the donation is going to go to. In October of last year, Planned Parenthood Keystone, which used to be right across the street here from our church, moved to a new location on Kutztown Road, and we've opened the Susie and John Stanley Health Center, and we've upgraded our facilities, and it's beautiful inside. And so we are, still offering all of the great care that you think of when you think of Planned Parenthood. Things like birth control and emergency contraception, STI testing and treatment, cancer screenings, chest exams, pregnancy testing, abortion care. But now we're actually offering HIV prevention with PrEP and PEP. And this November, I'm helping to launch gender-affirming hormone therapy through our telehealth. I'm also working very hard to revitalize our education program here in Reading and in Berks County. So we're revitalizing our Spectrum program. That's the LGBTQ youth group that we have been running since 2006. That's for young people in that 14 to 21 crowd to come in and get love and care in a place where they're totally accepted and celebrated, where they're going to build support networks and have fun and learn about STI protection and healthy relationships and registering to vote and all that good stuff. We're also providing care in our Health Resource Center, a place where adolescents can come and get one-on-one free sexuality and relationship counseling with a trained educator. And also we do workshops in the community. And this October, I am beginning a bilingual program in Reading where we've hired an educator to work just in the city with the hopes of connecting with 500 young people and building a coalition with the Latinx community. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening here in Reading and in Berks County. And every time that our church steps up and helps us with that mission, it just touches my heart so much. So I want to give you my heartfelt thanks for making PP Keystone the recipient of today's Share the Plate donation. Your contributions really, really do help us keep our doors open, help us pay our educators, help us feed the young people in our program, and help us widen our reach. So I just want you to know that I appreciate you and I thank you with all of my heart.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Our sermon reading this morning comes from historian and philosopher Howard Zinn. He writes, "To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory." The words of Howard Zinn. In our chalice lighting words this morning, Reverend Gretchen Haley asks, "What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do?" In these days, she says, we find ourselves too often stuck with these questions on repeat. Too often these days, I find myself stuck on repeat with these questions. Some days my faith in possibility is tried. Some days I feel overwhelmed and stuck. Some days I have questions like, does every single person really have inherent worth and dignity as our principles affirm? It doesn't always seem that way to me. Some people and some events cause me sleepless nights and restless days. The climate crisis, the response to the pandemic, racial injustice, the political environment, they just loom so large. They seem like problems without solutions. Despite so much effort to make progress and the enormous amount of knowledge that we humans have amassed, we so often lack wisdom and insight. There's so much we humans haven't seemed to learn from our mistakes, from our history. And yet, there's still more to the story. As Zinn says, there's a greater complexity. A greater complexity of history exists. Howard Zinn reminds us that our perspective matters. He sees in our history both the capacity for destruction and the possibility for repair. He notes that we have a choice. He says, what we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. He doesn't deny cruelty or injustice nor any of the other bad stuff. Instead, he reminds us that being able to see the magnificent behaviors, the sacrifices, the courage, the compassion gives us the impetus and momentum, the heart and soul to keep spinning the world in the direction of justice and beauty and kindness. Unitarian Universalism is a religion that has embraced this idea. The future we believe is not fixed, not predetermined. What we do individually and collectively creates, shapes, impacts, builds what will happen next. What we do helps to determine how life, our lives, our planet, this planet, relationships, communities, how they will unfold, how we will all unfold. The history of Unitarian Universalism helps us understand how this perspective developed in our faith. The Universalists rejected the idea that some of us were saved and some were damned. They rejected the idea that humans were inherently sinful, that we were born into sin. They knew that people did terrible things. Nevertheless, they believed that at some level, each being, each person could be redeemed, could be brought back into human community, that all souls could be united as one, growing into harmony with the divine. They believed in universal salvation, that there is ultimately no separation between among us. The exact details of how that would transpire were a source of controversy. Some were adamant that the terrible deeds that had been committed would need to be atoned for before a person was restored, was saved, would reach heaven, if you will. Others said that all were saved, every single person, no exceptions. Both understandings are radical in their inclusivity, insisting that beloved community is ultimately possible, that it is our birthright as human beings. The Unitarians, on their end of things, on their side of things, they held that we humans could evolve through our own effort and through education, that we could actually learn from our mistakes and be enlightened. Character development was emphasized. They said each of us could grow in compassion, we could learn to have and exercise conscience, we could develop our ability to treat others with dignity and with respect. When the Unitarians and the Universalists merged in 1961, these two threads of possibility, of hope, also merged. They continue to inform our faith in possibility. We are, even when we have doubts, the people who affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We affirm acceptance of one another, and alongside that acceptance, we affirm the capacity for growth. We promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We don't tell each other that we must understand the truth in a specific way, but that we are each invited and charged with uncovering truth and doing so in an accountable way. We strive toward world community, equity and compassion in human interaction, and uplift respect for the interconnectedness of all life. Those are the principles of a people, of a community that believes in possibility, that believes in the human spirit, in the human capacity to do good, to grow, to evolve, to make amends, to struggle, to fail and recommit, to be good citizens of the world, to be caring and respectful of the universe and all the creatures and all of life that exist. As a religion, we understand that our having faith in possibility doesn't mean that harm, destruction, and even evil don't exist. We have faith in possibility because we believe that what we do matters. We have faith in possibility because we believe that we humans have a role in creating the world. What we do helps to shape and reshape the arc of things to come, in helping to bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. Do you know who coined that phrase? Some of you are probably thinking Martin Luther King Jr. He used that phrase and he brought it into popular culture, if you will, into justice work broadly. But it was the 19th century abolitionist and Unitarian minister Theodore Parker who first coined that phrase. When I find myself stuck on repeat with those questions, what's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? I remind myself of Theodore Parker's words that the moral arc of the universe bends toward justice. I ask myself a different question than those questions that get stuck on repeat for me. I ask, what should we build, you and I? What should we build? I remind myself that I have a choice in what I emphasize, and I choose possibility. I choose to believe that the moral arc bends toward justice and that I and we can help to make it so. What if we were to promise to build each other's futures? I'll build your future and you'll build mine. We'll do it together. That's what our Unitarian Universalist faith invites us to do, to build the future together, to believe that it is possible, to recognize the magnificent, and let it inspire and embolden us to create the world we dream about, a world guided and informed by love. May it be so. Amen. And blessed be. It was wonderful to hear that hymn sung here in our sacred space. So friends, how is your faith in possibility doing? Will you let love guide your way? Will you give from deep within you? Love, 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 love can guide us through the hard night. You, we can change the world with our love. May we have faith in the unfolding possibilities of love and life. May we have faith in the possibility that the moral arc of the universe is ever bending toward justice, and we have a place in helping to make it so. Amen, and blessed be. And we are going to move now into our coffee hour time, a time for us to be able to be in conversation in smaller groups. Nick Pomo is going to help get us unmuted first, so everyone has a few moments to say hello to one another, and then we'll get a chance to be in smaller groups. And our team here is going to take a few minutes together to have their own time for a little sharing as you're sharing there. So, Nick, can you unmute us?